Portrait of a Fangirl is a web series and podcast created by Temple of Geek. At the core of the project is the importance of telling the stories of women who have found inspiration, growth, and power through fandom. My name is Jenna Wren, and I'm the host of the Portrait of a Fangirl podcast. And today I'm here talking to journalist Laura Sirikul. Hi, Laura.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I adore you, and I'm so excited for you to share your story with everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much for having me. I love Portrait of the Fangirl, and I love Temple of Geek, and I love everyone that you work with. That whole team is amazing, and I love the site. So they all know I love them.
Oh, well, we love you too. I can talk for everyone at Temple of Geek. We love you too. So can you just start out with introducing yourself to our audience and just telling them a little bit about what you do?
Okay. Yeah, my name is Laura Sirikul. I'm a entertainment journalist and critic who covers TV, film, music, some sports coming up, and pop culture. I've been in the industry for about 10 years, a little over, but I've been covering like entertainment and regarding advocacy for Asian Americans, Asian diaspora, and also Asian media. And yeah, my focus has always been on that when I cover television and film, because, it's something I identify with like closely and something important to me growing up. So I cover mostly everything, and I write for a whole bunch of places like The Nerd to Color and IGN, Empire, Elle, Variety, just a whole bunch of places.
Wow. Did you always want to be a writer?
I wanted to be in entertainment in a way of like somewhere in that entertainment aspect, because I grew up watching TV. I grew up, we watched TV, and like I'm a second gen kid here. My parents are immigrants. And so I'm in America absorbing American culture and everything. And so I knew I wanted to be part of that world of like television and movies and talk about it, because I loved it so much. But growing up with Asian parents, like I kind of went into sciences, like science writing, because I did love writing and telling stories. And so I went into kind of like the science of writing and scientific journals. I started out writing. I have degrees in science and scientific writing and stuff. Yeah, I know a lot of people are like, you. And so, but then I was like, I feel like I still watched like so much. I was involved in pop culture and television and film. So I was like, I'm going to, if I get the opportunity, I'm going to see if I can write about it. And I was given the opportunity to write a science versus a movie, the science in a movie. And so I was like, okay, let me do that. And then I figured, you know what, let me pitch to places and try to write more about television, film, and things I love, because I do have a writing background, which is very different, but still like I know how to write. So I was like, I'm going to start doing this and maybe transition and I try to still do some science because it stays in my head. But I realized I'm like, I really love writing about film and TV. So I kind of just like kept pitching and putting myself out there, and now I have a career in it now.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to make that change, that pivot between academic writing and something that's entertainment, that's accessible to the public, as opposed to just a journal or academia. So that must have been difficult.
Oh yeah, it was hard because like I write like the way I wrote before was very matter of fact, where I'm like, here are the facts, here's the thing. There's no emotions behind it, because we have to be factual and everything's data driven and data based. And so trying to write your thoughts into like an article, or trying to like create a story based around the interviews that you've done, it was really difficult transitioning through that. So I did take some classes so I could better myself in film and TV, and like also like other creative courses. And you can find them online too. You don't need to go back to school. And so I really tried to hone in my craft regarding that, because when you're in science, it's like science, and it's like fact, this, and journalism is like that. You get the facts and everything. But when you write opinions or do interviews where you're trying to highlight things about people or find out things about people, you need to have that creative edge to it. And so it took a while to really hone in that, like, and learn how to really write that style. It took many years. Like everyone's all like, oh, when you started, it must have been so easy because you were a writer before. And I'm like, no, they're completely different. And I really wanted to better myself. So I was like, no, if this is something I want to do and be in, then I need to hone in the skills that are necessary for this. I'm glad I have that science background of like being accurate and very like focused on it and knowing my formats, but everything's like a learning curve. Like I tell people all the time, like you learn as you go, as you write, and you learn how to better yourself with each article.
Absolutely. So getting to the term fangirl, what are you fangirling about currently?
Well, right now, Star Wars: The Acolyte. I'm obsessed with it right now. What else am I? The new Doctor in Doctor Who, Ncuti Gatwa. Right?
Love him.
Right?
I love him.
I'm like obsessed. He's so gorgeous, and like I love the story. Like I just love this Doctor's personality, and like there's so much depth to him, and yet it's like a mystery. And I don't know. He's just so good in this role, and yeah, I love him so much. But yeah, so Doctor Who, the new Doctor in Doctor Who, Ultraman Rising just came out, so I'm obsessed with that right now. I love kaiju kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, I need to watch Ultraman, and it's a new version, so it felt very Americanized because the character has become Japanese American. So I was kind of like, this is a nice relatability to the character and bringing Ultraman from Japan to this relatability as an Asian American. Cobra Kai is coming up. I love that show. So I got to see the episodes and I'm like, I can't say what they are, but I'm like excited. I'm also obsessed with, like you can see in the background, BTS and K-pop. So I love them so much. And I'm also fangirling over rugby right now, like specifically for Asian countries, like the Asian rugby games. Like I'm obsessed with rugby, but only like in Asia.
Wow. Is it a really popular sport in Asia? Like I know nothing about sports, so
Oh my god! So it's not popular at all in Asia, other than Hong Kong. But like in Korea, like I'm obsessed with the Korean team right now, and like it's not popular in that country at all. So like for me, I did an article, so I learned so much about them, and I'm kind of like in love with the sport now, and in love with that team, and I'm rooting for them. Like I'm waking up at like 4:30 and 1:30 a.m. to watch their games because I'm like I gotta cheer them on. Like it's not popular in Korea, so I'm like I'm a huge fan. So I'm like I'm always like writing and cheering them on. I'm like yay! Like I'm a rugby girl now, so I have like I didn't really care much about sports. I love baseball, like cause Dodgers and stuff. But like when you're like LA, it's like the teams that you love, Lakers and everything. But like now I'm like no, I'm a rugby girl. So I'm fangirling over them too. I fangirl over a lot of things because it's anything that sparks my interest where I'm like consistent about it. Like Star Wars and Doctor Who and like whenever Star Trek comes back, Ultraman and BTS will always be my loves. But now rugby, like anything that sparks passion, I'm like I get into it. I'm like, okay, this is my thing now. I'm this person now.
So, like, getting into that a little bit, is that kind of how you view the term fangirl, about things that spark your interest?
Yeah, I fangirl, obviously it's a universal thing for a woman or a girl who identify as one, enthusiasm for a particular fandom. And if it sparks joy, like I love Marie Kondo, who's a cleaning, who, sparks joy in cleaning stuff. If it sparks joy and you identify yourself as a girl and you're a fan of it, then yeah, fangirl. I love something with a passion. And, everyone always gives fangirls flack because in their minds, like society's minds, it's always they're teenagers who just like obsessed, like NSYNC or all this stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong. Like I was one of them too. There's like Backstreet Boys and all that stuff and Spice Girls growing up. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I'm glad that we're taking ownership of what fangirls mean. And that we're putting it in a positive spin. Like fangirl means to me is like just we're fans, we love it, we have a passion for it, and we identify as a girl or woman. Then yeah, that's what we are. And I'm glad I'm seeing it everywhere now. And I see people are waving the flag of being fangirls, and I'm so happy and proud that we get to like reclaim what fangirl means.
Yeah, it was very much, I feel like growing up, a negative connotation with
Yeah.
the screaming girls. Like I was also Backstreet Boys and Sync, the whole,
Yeah.
millennial growth. So it was very much something where you were almost identified as other, like these girls, and we're not taking them seriously. And now
Yeah.
it's like so great, like you said, to see this new movement embracing it. We love to see passion.
Yeah, we're taking over the world, honestly. Like I feel like it's beautiful to see like BTS Army both fanboys and fangirls of BTS, like they're creating movements. Star Wars fangirls, we're pushing for our voices to be heard, like amongst like the fanboys of like the old generation. And like I love seeing how we just rise above it all.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned K-pop because a few people I've interviewed love BTS and K-pop, and I know I would go really hard into it. So I'm like, don't do it. You can't do it.
Oh my god, yeah. Like as you can see, I have a full cutout of Jin from BTS.
Oh, I love it. Growing up, I had a cardboard cutout of Orlando Bloom as Legolas from Lord of the Rings. So that's what
Oh
I
my
thought.
god, that's amazing. I love that. Lord of the Rings was another passion of mine too. But I love the Hobbits. Billy Boyd was my man.
Oh, he's so cute. Those movies, amazing, amazing movies. So we are really big fans of the work you do, and I really want our audience to understand the magnitude of some amazing things you've done and the things that you've been involved in the entertainment field. So on top of being a journalist, you have been seen all over the pop culture scene, from conventions to red carpets to Hollywood premieres. You've done set visits, you've moderated industry panels. You also advocate for representation in this industry and have carved out a really unique niche for fangirls. Can you share your origin story with us?
Oh yeah, I kind of touched it in the beginning, but that's so sweet. I love that you that's so kind of you to say that, because like I feel like as like women in general, when we hear our like the things that we've done, we usually shy away and just get like, oh thank you, humbled by it, and I am humbled by it, but I need to learn how to accept like thank you, like I appreciate that. Yeah, I worked really hard and I'm trying to be better about that. But yeah, like I said, like, scientific writing to make my family happy because Asian parents. And so, it was funny because like I got into it because they asked, World War Z came out and it's about the pandemic and everything. And so I think outlet was looking for a place who could talk about the pandemic and the health and the science behind it. And because of my degree, I was like, you know what, let me do this. Let me pitch and let me talk to them. And so I was able to write about it. And then I thought, you know what, it's somehow involved into me writing more geeky and science to television and film. And where I thought, you know what, if I could write about this, I could write about other things like in science or even not beyond, even beyond science. So it kind of evolved from like writing the science of it to writing things I really just loved and analysis of it, and then pitching myself to talk to these people, to write about them and do interviews. And then do some criticism of the films. And after I studied film and TV, and I pitched myself and writing for more places, I bettered myself to as a writer, film critic, and Asian, advocate for Asian diaspora. So I took classes and I just did whatever it took to get to a place where I'm like, I feel like I'm ready to write more and do more for my journalism.
So, what were some of the hurdles that you faced bridging the gap between being a passionate fan and a credible journalist?
Um, you know, like I said, like I wasn't great about writing in the beginning because obviously scientific is so different from interviews and reviews. I had this perspective of a fan where I was like, oh, I'm going to ask these questions that I've been dying to ask as a fan and look for the things that only fans want. And that may be true for like fun interviews because you want to do what the fans want, and like it's like fan service. But whenever it got to kind of like when I got pitched to write like serious things or analyzing things, I had to like separate myself as a fan, and it was hard. It's so hard because like meaning like like, you know, interviewing Lee Jung-jae, I was like, there's so much I want to talk to him about like just in general the things he's done. Also, like, you know, like, and maybe theories about his character. But then it's like hard because you want to get the best story out of him regarding like to create a profile and like a beautiful story about how he became like, you know, he became part of this universe. So I really had to separate the bias I had as a fan to be like, oh my God, I want to know all these things about all these movies and shows you've done and also Star Wars, to like being researching everything and making sure I write the things that are about Star Wars in there, but in a way where it tells a new story about him and getting more out of him. So it's really hard. I'm like, I want to talk to you about everything, but I can't. But I always craft a story beforehand in my head of what I'm going to write about and do my questions based on that. And so I really, I make sure I add the element of like the things that fans kind of want to know, but also in like a journalistic point of view. Unless it's an opinion piece, then there's no, I'm like, I'm going to be a fan. I'm going to write all this stuff, but also be critical as much as I can.
Right. The opinion pieces allow you to kind of be a little more untethered, right?
Well, yeah, like I'm like if I write like those kinds of opinion pieces of like why this person is underrated, why I don't care much about like, you know, Raylo, or I care about Raylo, you know, those pieces, like you could be a fan, but then you have you are also a journalist while you add, you know, the evidence behind it. You know how to write and add and be a journalist too. You could be a fan too. Those are the kinds of stories that I think you could be yourself and not hold back as long as you have the evidence behind it. But when it comes to like other things, you kind of have to hold back, like of fandom, like interviews, you have to kind of like pull back from those.
Right. You have to be the professional more so. Put on the professional mask.
I'm like, my eyes tell me everything. I'm like, like, I love you so much, but I'm a professional.
I'll ask you very professional things, but I'll have the eyes.
I think if you watch the Lee Jung-jae interview I did, you could see like when it goes to him, like, you know, he's talking, and then you go to me, it's like,
oh,
like love eyes, like you, like I think someone wrote like, oh, you see hearts shooting from her eyes.
that's so sweet. That's so cute.
So yeah.
But that makes it, as somebody watching an interview, like really makes it relatable because you see the love that you're bringing from it. It's not just somebody blankly reading off a page, getting questions and answers. There's a real connection. And I think that's really important in journalism and the entertainment field.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you need to know your stuff. Like you need to be prepared for anything, especially red carpets, like any questions that pop up in that universe. I think being a fan helps a lot because you do less research. Like I felt like anytime I have to do an interview with anyone like in the fandom realm I love, like Doctor Who and stuff, like I feel like there's less work for me because I'm so passionate about it. Or if I have to write an opinion piece, there's less, like I will do research for the evidence, but I don't need to think too much about like what this show is or who is on the show or, you know, details about it. When you do an opinion piece on your fan, you do less research and like you're on the carpet, you know so much about them that like on the carpet, especially because sometimes you don't know who you're gonna get. But if you know the lore and all this stuff that's happening for the series, you could come up with things easily on the spot because you are such a fan too. Like I remember like I got called in to work a red carpet, but I wasn't doing the interviews. I was just there because I know so much about pop culture on all the shows that were being honored at the awards show that they just had me there in case like a show actor from a show comes up. They go, Laura, who is that? And like I could like, because it's like a Nickelodeon, like I watch all those things, or like Disney, I'm like, yeah, this is this person. You could ask about this and this and this. Or Star Wars, like they would always like, I used to be that person like that they would have like producing and like just give them questions.
Yeah, that's an important part of the whole process for a journalist. You need to know what to ask. You know?
Yeah, you need to know your stuff at least, like because I like you're asking these questions, you're trying to get a story out of them, so you need to know what to ask or at least the details about it. I always like do a lot of research before I do any interviews, unless it's like a red carpet where I don't know who I'm getting. If it's a award show and like but I try, if I see them walk along the carpet, I immediately pull up my phone and try to research as much as I can, because you want to be as professional as possible. You don't want any errors regarding who you're talking to, like, or because, if people like PR sees it, and so did actors, so they know like if this is a good journalist or not.
Right. And it's a service to the actors as well. You want to make sure you show them in the most efficient light. Yeah.
Yeah, like I really love when actors, like, a lot of people are like, whenever I ask questions, like I don't, and like I do a Q&A style interview, I never put in that's a great question, because like but I do love hearing that. Like I don't put it in the article because I feel like it's more, that serves me more than it does them. So I take that out and I just put the answer. But I love hearing whenever they go like, I didn't think about that. I never was asked that before, because like it really shows the craft that all the effort you put into making sure you ask something different and unique. And it's okay if you do ask the same ones, because sometimes we need to have a base.
Right. And then sometimes I would think it gives them a chance to think about a different answer maybe than they've given before.
Yeah.
So you might get something special out of that.
Yeah.
But every journalist really has that big pinch me moment. Which interviews stand out to you as some of the most surreal or exciting, where your inner fangirl was kind of squealing?
Oh my God. So I really thought about like all the, like my history of like who I interviewed, and honestly, I was thinking, I'm like, as a like when I was up and coming journalist and as a like journalist now, like every interview I've done has made me appreciate, and I feel honored and happy because I have the opportunity to do this. And for me, I'm like, I'm just happy to participate in any conversation. And if they're like from up and comers to veteran actors, I don't take any of my work for granted. And it's always a pinch me where I'm like, no, I get to talk about movies or TV with this person, or rugby, or or like just fun stuff. I get to talk to these people, and they may not be like they're new actors, or they're young fresh new actors, but they're still like involved in something I love, like a television show or movie. And I'm always happy. It's always a pinch me moment where I'm like, no, I get to talk to these people and they are part of this world. But if you're wondering who I almost broke out of my professionalism pinch me moments, like, yeah, because of my love for them, like where I'm like, like everyone I'm happy and I'm honored, but like the ones where I'm like, I love you so much. Like, I think it was Lee Jung-jae definitely was the recent one. Park Seo-joon, he's a Korean actor I love so much. And I have a biggest crush on him. So like chatting with him, I'm just like staring at him like, huh? Uh-huh. Like Jennie from Blackpink, I got to interview her and I got to hang out with her, like meet her in person. But I had to be a professional the whole time, even though I've been a fan of her music and her group for a long time. Michelle Yeoh, icon, mother, and Angela Bassett, of course, another mother. Any mothers, like mothers, yeah, queen mothers. Sandra Oh, who I love so much, and who I've like interviewed so much that she was like, hey, like she's like, hey, Laura. I'm like, oh my God, you know me, like
That's surreal.
I know. I'm like, you know who I am? And she's like, yeah, we just spoke last. I'm like, I love you. But in my head, I'm under my breath. I'm like, I love you. I think I said that out loud once and she laughed, but I don't know, maybe. Kelly Marie Tran, because that was an iconic moment for me to have like a major Asian woman be part of the Star Wars universe that I love so much. Getting to talk to her. And then she also played the first like Southeast Asian princess in Disney. So I'm like I respect her so much that like I felt like, oh my God, I'm talking to the first of like for Asians. And then Ali Mackey, because I love her, she's an incredible person. Ki Hwa Kwan, oh, I love him. and then Keanu Reeves.
Oh, I would
hanging on my wall. Yeah, I fangirls. Yeah, but I was internally, I'm like, like, like you have to be professional, but my eyes tell, like, and my face and my like cringe, like, oh, that's when you knew I was like fangirling. Like, I love everyone I talk to, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm very professional. But then when I'm not, it's like, Like,
And
you
especially
know,
him with the stories you hear about what a gentleman and a nice guy he is. Like
yeah.
that's makes you love him even more.
Yeah, and then he got so close, and I'm just like, oh. Like, and part of me was like floating near him. I didn't touch him, obviously, but I was just like, I just want to be close to you because I love you. And in my head, like, I didn't say it out loud. I hope I didn't say it out loud. Maybe I did. I don't know. It was a blur. It was a blur. But yeah, having those people, having the opportunity to talk to those people and interact with them, it was just like, it's so surreal of like the work I wanted to get done too.
Right. It goes to show how far you've come and the accomplishments you've made. These interviews you get.
Yeah, I again like, but it also makes you like realize like I really appreciate the people who helped me who got me there. Like I always like I'm very like I think I always tell people I'm like I try not to have an ego or anything because in this industry, like I don't think anyone should. Like I think I'm too old to have one too, but I feel like in this industry you just don't know like where your career is going to end up. You don't know. Yes, you may have gotten the cover. Yes, you may have done this, but you're never sure of what's going to happen tomorrow or where you're going to write your next piece. And so I always tell people like appreciate every moment, thank everyone who has been part of that for you, that journey for you, and just like accept your wins, like but also appreciate how you got there. Yeah. So like yeah. For me, I'm like, every time I think about these moments I get to interview or talk to these people or write something I'm passionate about, I just, every time I'm like, oh, I'm just thankful. Like, I'm so thankful.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a humbling experience.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I'm like, Michelle, yo, you're in my face. Like, mother,
That one,
like,
that one's blown my mind.
yeah, I'm like, I love you so much. I love you so much. But like, at the same time, I'm like, I need to be professional. I'm like, I love you.
Oh, I love you from a professional
I
standpoint.
know.
But between screenings and red carpets and these massive events that you wind up doing, how do you manage to maintain a work-life balance?
Um, I learned to say no. That was the hardest thing, I think, for me. I used to say yes to everything, and I was dying inside because I would have an event in the morning, rush to Hollywood in the afternoon for a luncheon or something, and then go to an event at night. And then afterwards, I would have to go home and write, or like I have to like turn in some documents. Next day, same thing. It's like a never ending cycle of nonstop like content, like doing things. And I think a few years ago, like I had more energy, like, in like, I had more energy. I didn't have a personal life really. Like my thing was like, I just need to have this career. I need to have this career. I didn't really hang out with friends other than like event friends. And then these people did become my friends, like, and I love them so much. But it's like, you only see, and it's sad because you only see them at events, and like I love them beyond these events, but you kind of lose track of your own life and your own sense of like as a person rather than like just like continuously putting out content and putting out and trying to do more. And then you kind of burn out, like, and then it's hard to come back from that. So I've really had to say no and also ask for help. I think a lot of people have a hard time. Like when I was writing I write for the Nerds Color too, and I was just like always like, I'm going to take this opportunity. I'm going to take this opportunity. Let me do this. Let me do this. And they were like, and I was like, you know what? Other people need to like also write, and they're so good at this thing, and they are fans too. Let them have opportunities too. Like Laura, stop. Like, and it became because I had FOMO, and I was like, no, I have to do everything because I want this career and all this stuff. But you could still have a career just by like doing like without doing everything. And so I really had to. It was hard because there's so many things I love, but it's physically and mentally draining to do it all. And so yeah, that's my advice to people. Like it's the hardest thing in the world to ask for help and to say no, but it is the best thing for you. So I have to be picky about things now.
So how now do you prioritize these events? How do you pick and choose which ones you're going to cover?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I do have favorites. So it's like Star Wars Acolyte. I'm like, move everyone. I'm gonna do everything for this because the leads are, this is all people of color. So this is like my dream series of like seeing people like us and and woman led and you know the showrunner like Leslie Headland and everyone's like this is a great show that I've been looking for my whole life, really, like regarding representation and a great story. It's a great story. And so I'm like, no, I'm going to do this one. Do I have to say no to other things because I want to do this? Like I had that day had 2 junkets and it was like The Boys, which I love The Boys so much. But I had to like be like, you know what? I will write another thing about The Boys. I'll have someone else do the junket. Like I'll have to say no, but I'll write something else up. And so I have to decide what I like. One, what I'm passionate about. 2, what I can write about. Like if like outlets will let me write it and stuff, and just focus on things that like I can get done in that time span. Because The Acolyte, The Boys, Bridgerton all came out in the same week.
Unfair to
it is
entertainment
so
industry.
Unfair. And then Jin from BTS just got back too, so I wanted to write some stuff but I need to I had to figure out my schedule of like what can I write, what can I get done. And the great thing is like there are opportunities for video interviews, which you send to a video editor to handle, or written, which takes longer. So I try to figure out what I can do or which ones I can handle for myself. So it's hard, but I try to pick what's best for me as a writer, what brings me out as a creatively, but also like what gets accepted into the different outlets I write for.
Right. Yeah, it kind of sounds like a lot of it does come down to what am I the biggest fangirl of? You know, you have The Boys, Bridgerton, and Star Wars all in one week.
I know. I'm just like, oh my God. There's so much you want as a fan, you want to write about things like, oh, I want to write about analysis on Bridgerton. I want to write about Benedict. I want to write about this and his character development of her and Penelope's character, and then you want to write about the Acolyte and and them and their characters growth. So you have to really pick what can I do what can I do which pitch will get accepted, but what can I do in that time span too, because one might have I have to do research for 2 weeks. The other one will be I could just write this think piece and turn it in. So what can you handle that week?
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. Totally makes sense. I wanted to go back a little bit to your talk about advocating for diversity in an entertainment field. How did this become a cornerstone of your work you do now?
I think I've obviously I've been that kid who always wanted to get in touch with my identity. I'm the youngest, which is weird for in terms of always the oldest one is being forced to learn the language, to being forced to go to Chinese school, being forced to go to Thai school. But my mom told me I've always, as a kid, I want to go to Thai school. I want to go to Chinese school. Let's celebrate in the New Year. Let's do this. What does this mean? And go back to the country that they came from in Thailand. And so for me, I think also growing up in Staten Island, which is the red borough of the boroughs in New York, I was not really surrounded by Asians. So I think, and then moving to California was a big culture shock of Asians. And so I've always been connected in a way to wanting to know more about myself and the culture I came from, but not seeing it in media. And then a lot of people are oh, nowadays you could turn on TV and there is more inclusion. I'm so grateful for that. But growing up, we had Trini from Power Rangers, and we would all fight to be her. My cousin and I fought to be her. I'm I want to be Trini. I want to be Trini. And we, and then I would have to, if I love K-pop, I had to go to Thailand to buy all my K-pop stuff merch, and not because there's none here in California, in America back then. And so I was I want to bring more. I want to bring about more Asians, because what about the future of Asia, for my future generations, the family and stuff. And so when I started writing, I was I want to write more about the Asians. I want to interview all the Asians. I want to highlight the Asians, or call out these things that shouldn't be happening. Like Iron Fist, like when it first came out, like it was played by, Danny Rand was a white guy and in the comics and stuff, but it was an opportunity to change that and to change the perspective of the whole white savior effect. And I realized I'm like, I could call these things out. Like, and I want to call these things out because like we should, like, things should be better, not worse in society. And so I really focused on like making sure I highlight Asian voices throughout my career. I would always get assigned them. But I always tell people, I'm like, don't limit yourself to just Asians because you could write about anything. And so I always try to pitch others too, but in the perspective of like as an Asian person to them. I now don't ask Asian people about representation because they know. Like a lot of Asian actors, and especially Asian American and diaspora actors, we know how important it is. We've all like grew up wanting this. So now I try to ask the white showrunners or the others part of it about representation, because I feel like Asian people, we know, like we can't escape like being Asian, who we are. Like this is our face every single day. So for me, I'm like, no, it used to be where it's like how much representation means to you, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm like, no, like we know. I just want to highlight you and talk about you like a regular actor and highlight everything. And I'm in my intro or bio, it will talk about like your identity and stuff, but like it's not going to be the basis of the story, because I feel like we evolved as like Asians in like entertainment. And then if we address anything, it should be to the white showrunners and the white, like, or the non-Asian, like people who are writing for us. Like when in my interview with Leslie Headland, I that was most of the time I was like, how about this? Like Asian this, Asian that, because Lee Jung-jae, I didn't ask anything about being Asian, like, because obviously he is. Or even Manny Jacinto, like I only talked about his identity of growing up on how that affected him. But it was never like, oh, how do you feel being the first? How do you feel being this? It's like, no, I'm like, they know it's important. They know, but it should be directed to like Leslie or like the executive producers or Kathleen Kennedy, which I've asked Kathleen Kennedy about like people of color and bullying. So because I feel like it needs to be addressed by them and not by the actors facing those issues.
Right. It comes from above, really.
Yeah. Like it's been a passion of mine because, I want it to be normalized. I want us to be normalized. Like Asian hate happened, and it's still happening. But, we've all dealt with microaggressions and aggressions because people don't have this, like, especially the Midwest, they don't have this idea. They have this idea of us. And it's like, no, we are normal. We could be stoners. We could be this. We could be anything. We're American or we're Westernized too. And so I've been like big on that, on like telling more stories for Asians.
Have you received any pushback or resistance in your advocacy efforts?
I have, regarding, like, I feel like everyone wants to talk about AAPI stuff during AAPI month, and it's hard to tell a story beyond that. Like to be like, hey, I want to talk about this, and it's like this, and it's like I understand how outlets want to focus on like what's popular or who's popular, and it's hard to really do anything where it's like identity focused if it's not in that realm of like the time period of like AAPI or LGBTQ, and that's it's difficult. It's only when everyone always wants like, oh, can you get Michelle Yeoh? And I love her, like, and I was like, yeah, like, but the thing is, she's not the only one we want to highlight or talk about, and it doesn't have to be only in May. Let me do a profile on this person. Let me do a profile on that, and like a lot of places are accepting of it, but not every place. And it's really hard to get to like to kind of push for more Asian stories when it's not, people don't still, it's kind of, there's a bias still.
Right. Yeah. And the whole idea of the representation month, I would think it's great because, like you said, it highlights this community, but you have to continually say, we exist past this month, right?
Yeah. Like, please continue to tell our stories. Please continue to highlight us. I try, I like, if I can, because like, if I know I get pitched a lot of things from PR too. And I have to be picky about like my bandwidth of like writing, and I try not to only limit myself to Asian topics because, I'm an entertainment journalist. I'm not like an entertainment Asian journalist or Asian entertainment journalist only. I try to expand it because I could write. I can do critical thinking on. I could do critical thinking on Enola Holmes, which I wrote a review for Enola Holmes too. Like I could write about like that '90s show, and it doesn't have to center around Asian because I write the way I write from a critical thinking a journalist perspective, but I try to make sure I highlight Asian stories if I can and when I can, because for me I'm like no, like if I don't, then who will? Like I feel like it's hard to get many voices out there, and I think all journalists, Asian, especially the Asian journalists, we have a hard time finding places that will accept it. So we all push and push what we can. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I have to do this because if not me, then who? I have to have that mentality of like, and not the scarcity because like it's more of like, no, like if I can do this, I will. That's my thing. It's like if I can, I will.
Right. And you have worked to get to a part in your life where you have the platform to do so. So
yeah. Like I feel like it's great because I feel like I have enough writing credibility of bylines and like and working with editors, great editors, and working with great other journalists who can like back me up on my work. And so I try really hard. Like I think it's great. Like whenever I pitch myself, I make sure I add like my bylines and everything and just let them know I'm like, hey, I can write about this and all that stuff. And so I hope I have like, I think I established myself enough that, I could write, but it's just please let me. But also, yeah. So I think it helps to like, also like get to know the editors too. I think it helps a lot.
Right. Do you believe that fandom has the power to create positive changes in the industry?
I do. I do. I've seen it. Like, we all, obviously Star Wars, like that's a good example because we've all wanted to see ourselves in representation and like an inclusion. Diego Luna, we all loved him in, Rogue One. And we were like, no, this guy's story needs to be told, and we get to have Andor. Mandalorian, like we get to see Pedro Pascal, sexy Pedro Pascal, who I love so much, be the Mandalorian. And I think a lot, and yes, they're amazing actors, but I think it took a lot of fans being like, look at these people, they're great actors, and they happen to be people of color. And then Kelly Marie Tran, I feel like, it was so tough because everyone bullied her off social media. And I think, and it's sad because I think it took her and Moses Ingram from Obi-Wan Kenobi for like Lucasfilms to really step up and like be like, we need to be better, and we need to do right by these actors of color who are going to get harassed, who are going to be targeted by angry fanboys, and fanboys is not a bad word, but they're just passionate. But yeah, like angry, that's why I add angry to it, but angry fanboys and stuff, and toxic fandoms. Like every fandom's toxic. And so I feel like it takes us, our voices, to be like, hey, this needs to stop. This needs to stop. Like this can't keep happening, for them to step up. Yeah. I wrote a piece years ago about, there's this one actor who was going to play a Pacific Islander, and it was a white man. He was just really tan. and I was like, no, this isn't right. Like, he's not a Pacific Islander. He's like a British white guy. And he's portraying a real person, like a person in a part of their history, in the Pacific Islander history. And I was like, no, I need to write this because no one's noticing it. And so I wrote this piece about like how wrong it is, and then add some examples of it. And it got the attention of, the like government, like I got like some representatives contact me about it. They're like, we want to make sure like, you're right about Pacific Islanders. And like, it was featured in NBC. And like, I think that gave me some visibility of like as an advocate too, when I first started out. Because for me, I'm like, no, we have to and I wrote on a small platform, and I feel like people discredit these small platforms, but these platforms can create change and like bring the word out there. And I feel like I'm so grateful to be able to to be able to express it on the Nerds of Color, and then it went everywhere regarding that. And the project was axed, as well as I wrote this piece about this other about this woman writing a story about mail order brides, and I was just like, oh, this is an Asian mail order brides, and I was just like, this is not good. This is not this is glorifying it, and it's also it's very Asian women have to deal with this, and I'm like, no, the stereotypes are going to come out, and it was axed as well. It was we really pushed to get our voices out there that this is wrong. And I'm glad more places are now starting to do it, and it's mainstream platforms are starting to call things out, because before you didn't really see many call that stuff out. It was a lot of the smaller outlets that were doing that. Now we see more of it from everyone. But yeah, I feel like we can create change in I feel like journalists can create change, and then the cries from fans who have a platform. You guys, Temple, Geek, you guys have a platform to say things and call things out, and people will listen.
Right. And it's like you said, it doesn't necessarily matter about the numbers, because I think that analytics can sometimes, what's the word I'm looking for? Drive how people view something just based on numbers alone. But that's not always the best case.
No, I feel like people I think it's for me, Nerds of Color, they had a smaller platform, but it's what points are being made. And then one person who watches it could be like, you know what, I'm going to express what you said and onto this. And it moves forward, and people will write about what you said, and they'll quote and direct it to you. You may not have the numbers, but what your words matter and what you're saying matters, because it resonates for a lot of people.
Yeah, especially with the interconnected world of the internet today. Something that you read, you could see somebody talking about it on TikTok, and then it gets shared, and you never know where something is going to wind up.
Yeah, and I love all the fandom spaces and the pods that and I even am okay with even the ones who are that I don't care for much, but they're allowed to say what they want to say, and they have fans who are passionate. As long as they don't harass other people, I'm fine with it. You create your own space, and then you create you could create change by just talking about it, and then more people are this is a great point, and let's do this. Let's all do this collectively.
Laura, I think that is a great place to end this conversation. I think you've given us a lot to think about, and the audiences really should take what you have to say into consideration while viewing the entertainment industry.
Yeah, no, I'm so grateful for I keep saying that word. I need to stop doing this, because I'm just so happy that you guys asked me to be part of this, because I love you guys so much. And it's your platforms that allow me to have a voice too, because usually my voice is always expressing other people's voices. So that's my job to bring about more stories about others. So I love that you're giving me a platform to talk about myself and give my point of view of things.
Right. Your story, I believe, is just as important as the other stories that you tell. And it's lovely to hear what you bring into this field.
Yeah. No, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.